out there? It's the Holy Hour Podcast. How's it going? I'm here with Donald. I'm just going to say your name this time. How's it going out there, man? It's been a weird day.
I'm bad boying it up.
You bad boying it up? Good. Hanging in there.
It's a weird world, man. Like,
It's
you got to bad boy it up. Like,
so they say.
Things are scary.
And it's a scary episode, too. We're
it's a
happy
scary episode in a scary world, and you got to bad boy it up.
And your bad boy backing me up. This is one of those episodes, guys, where I was like, all right. And I said this to Donald like 3 times because we tend to have about 3 conversations about episodes before we actually record them. I was like, I'm thinking I'm just going to do this episode where I talk about the 4 years in between Wish and Wild Mood Swings. It was a pretty dark, weird 4 years. It's a little more complicated.
4 years is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of time.
Because Cure records are just like, bam, 1 year,
yeah.
Bam, 1 year, bam.
Up until this point, they'd all been
gap.
Yeah, and I think we talked about with the Wish one that between Disintegration and Wish, it was 3 years, but we had mixed up, so they hit it well. There was like Entreat and then mixed up, so it was like lots of little things that just keep you occupied, you know. But like as far as new material, it was like barely 3 years, but this was kind of like a 4 dark years period, and I remember like the first initial telling you about this, I was like, and then we could go into this and this that happened in that year. You're like, yeah, good luck with that, man. That sounds boring. Like,
I'm already spooked.
You're like, all right, I don't want to have anything to do with that. And then like the next time you said the same thing, but then the last time,
speculate.
the last time we talked, you're like, you really need to just like bounce that off of me because it's gonna be even weirder if it's just you alone in a room talking about 4 dark years. And I'm like, yeah, it might get dark because it is like 4 years is like the gap of like, yeah, like your whole high school career.
Look at the past 4 years of your life.
Yeah, any 4-year
like,
block. You could go all through
that
college if you do it right.
Man. Think of all the things you've done right and you've done wrong in the past 4 years.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot. Like
shit changes. Yeah,
you could pump a baby into someone and have a 4-year-old.
Yeah,
like that's terrifying. Like a lot of crazy shit could happen in 4 years.
And even parent-wise, by a 4-year-old, that's like when you're coming out of the like, whoa, all right, we got this little human now that can like
cool
do
now.
shit
Like,
and talk and like
they can
like,
wipe their own ass.
Yeah, it's
you
like
know?
that's like you did it by 4 years. Like it's like the start and and it's like
right.
And as you get older, it is kind of like you're kind of like 4 years, whatever. Time flies
you
so
can
fast
see
now.
4 years from like a perspective of living past 4 years.
Yeah, like as I'm older.
Remember when
4 years? That's nothing.
10 years ago.
But when you're younger too, like 4 years is an eternity, you know. And it's like, like depending on the part of your life you're at, it varies a lot. Because now I'd be like, if I got sentenced 4 years in jail, I'd be like, whatever, I could. I can catch up on some books I've been meaning to read. It's not that big of a deal. But as a kid, that's like, you could go through a whole chunk of your education. You could do all kinds of things in 4 years. And
4 years seems like a lifetime. The older I get, like the more I look at 4 years as such a precious time.
Okay, so maybe it's the reverse, or maybe
like
it is a kid thing. Yeah, it's something to ask you because you do not have children.
Looking. Being old enough to look back on 4 years,
okay,
with an old, like I'm like 41, and looking back at 4 years, like, is heavy. That's a long time. Like at the time, experiencing those 4 years, it was a fucking blink of an eye, you know. But hopefully being wiser and older, looking back on like, what did I do with that 4 years?
Yeah, it's a good chunk of time for sure. And
and how old was old Bob Smith during this 4 year gap?
Starting to get fuzzy on the math for this, but we said so 30, 89, 32 with Wish, so he's getting mid 30s now. So by the time Wild Mood Swings comes out, that's kind of what we're basing this all off of. So on the top here, Wish came out April on his birthday, 32nd birthday, I think it was, 92. And Wild Mood Swings won't come out till May of 96. So he was about 36 then, I think, or 35, maybe just turned 36. We'll get into the specifics for Wild Mood Swings, but yeah, like mid-30s. So he's still, a young man, but at the same time, it is a different age bracket and a different approach. And
facing mortality.
Yeah, and there's no denying, and this is not the Wild Mood Swings episode, but it leads to it, and it's good to keep it in perspective. Right before we talked, you said you're refreshing yourself on some Wild Mood Swings, but it's like no matter where you stand as a Cure fan, there's some clear shift in the band at this point. Like whether you're on board with Wild Mood Swings still being a great album, or still has a lot of great songs, or is just where the fucking wheels totally came off, and a lot of people are in that boat or don't like anything after Wild Mood Swings on, and it's like, and I kind of see it all, I have my stance and it'll be clear, and Donald has his stance and it'll be clear, but it's like, I think it's pretty clear to everybody that it's just a different chapter in the Cure for sure, and I think it's, and kind of the point of this episode is, well, what happens in this 4 years? Is this maybe, would it have been different if they made Wild Mood Swings or whatever the next album would have been right after Wish, or was this just the inevitable next step and the outcome?
Or it was just someone taking a fucking break.
Yeah, a long overdue fucking break. The dude's been cranking
reaping
shit
the
out.
benefits of their hard work.
Yeah,
and just I'm gonna take fucking 4 years off of.
Yeah, I think
it's a fucking grind.
Nothing wrong with that, and
no,
and but I mean, just seeing the momentum of the band and what it is, and pairing it up from one end of the bridge to the other, it's kind of interesting. I think there's a lot to go into, and before we hit record,
I'm making a follow up to Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me.
Yeah.
And
that's because that was immediate with Disintegration, so it was like okay, and then it was like I'm making
hey, what
follow up
before?
To Disintegration, our biggest album. So then it's like that's gonna be a fucking challenge. So how do you follow up your biggest selling album, Wish?
Yeah,
it's just like here's how I follow it up. I don't fucking make one. I'm gonna take some time off, but
right, dude. There's just like a million fucking questions with this fucking record, This shit threw me off,
Wild Mood Swings.
Yeah, we're just I don't know if I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. They lost me on this shit hard.
In case anybody's somehow just chiming into this podcast now, I think it's fair to just put it on the platter that Donald kind of loses a little faith at this point. Mm-hmm. You're a little wishy-washy on faith or on Wish. Sorry, lose faith on Wish on the last one, but I'm still on board. I feel like Wild Mood Swings is underrated, and we'll get into all that. But it definitely has some new low points that I've never seen to it. Yeah, we're gonna save it. We've got a verbal agreement. Chaz is gonna come back and hash it out with us after hearing this. He might change his mind, but yeah, and I'm not quite sure where he stands on Wild Mood Swings. So it'll be cool. He'll be
He probably loves it.
I don't know. I think he might be closer to your perspective on it, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a weird album for sure, and it's got some shit I love on it, and some that I think is clearly the worst stuff they ever recorded. So it's a weird one.
Damn.
Yeah. But I definitely do think it's underrated, and I think it takes a lot of shit because of the stuff we're about to talk about. And whether it's intentional or not, I feel like a lot of people just changed along with the band in that 4 years. So one kind of quick thing, we don't get super personal on this show, but we'll try to keep it to a minimal. But
I'm getting personal as shit.
Yeah, we kind of wanted this to get dark a little, but it's to us, if you follow our timeline, and bear with me, Don, you'll just make this hopefully funner. I'd just be crying if I did this by myself at this point, maybe. But if you look at 92 to 96, and we talked about how Wish was the first album that we saw on the tour. We were freshmen in high school, just these fresh young Cure fans. We got into them in Disintegration and just followed the fucking end of that like awesome wave of like, fuck yeah, best band ever. And like,
Had a little hair in the balls.
yeah, we're just like experiencing life and shit, you know,
Young.
like going into the fucking world of high school, you know, that 4-year gap, the fact
As
that it's
idiots.
yeah, well, everyone is, right? I mean, I don't feel too guilty about my dumbness then, but I was like,
I feel no guilt at
we
all.
boys in 1992, freshman year, high school. But I feel like it's weird for us, and I'm sure a lot of people, whatever stage you're at when this 92 came in, but it was like, not only was it a 4-year gap, but, you know, I think of like schooling, and 4 years was the 4 years of fucking high school, you know? And it's like all of high school was based on Wish coming out my freshman year, and like having Robert Smith and Morrissey basically as my two dearest friends, aside from Donald and, you know, a handful of others. But it's like, you know, they were my crutches for sure, like many of us, and like, and it was, in a sense, not to get super melodramatic, but kind of my first Cure letdown in these 4 years, where I'm like, where the fuck are they? Like, this is like the first like silence that we've ever had as fans.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I
got
needed
into
you.
and you let me down.
I was like, this is when I need you most. I'm in high school, and like, luckily, I hit the back catalog
It's
hard.
like, you fucked me, you asshole.
But yeah, and I mean, it was cool for like the first couple of years. I was
put
like,
so much into you.
yeah, I was just like, where are you?
Life,
like,
and you fucked me.
and it was just
But I
some
need
hard
you most.
years. Like, even people that thrived in high school, which I don't think it's safe to say we didn't really thrive. You know, we weren't the types that really
No.
blew it up or anything, and were like, God damn, I miss those years. But even the people that miss those years, like, it's hard years of anybody in high school, I think, you know? And it's like why a lot of these bands really are dear to our heart, was because you have this kind of music to get you through it. And it was just like, yeah, it's fucking painful. And I mean, and just thinking again of
And
the
people
change.
look back at those years fondly.
Yeah, it was like fucking
You know, it's
crazy,
like-
you know? And it's, and it just,
This show is terrifying.
yeah. And it's like, and you know, thank God we had like over
A
10 years
refuge.
worth of Cure music to get you through that. So I mean, really can't
Yeah.
gripe that much. We had like, you know, all their darkest
Yeah.
great shit to still be there for us. I don't really ever really remembering being mad at the Cure until maybe like 95, when I'm like, all right, this is getting stupid. Where the fuck's the next record? You know, like I definitely had enough.
Yeah, it was like I was like an old man when I got angry at the Cure.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of my point, was
Because
like,
this shit was just like a hug. It was a cuddle.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to cuddle with some shit.
because like those
I dug it, like you were saying, like I dug into my, like, their back catalog when all this shit started coming out.
Yeah.
When I really needed them.
yeah.
They let me down, but they had that fucking back catalog
Mhm.
that just like
It's golden. That's-
fucking held me through.
Yeah, so they did the job. I don't mean to be harsh, but it
Yes.
was definitely like a waiting for someone's phone call kind of deal, but more so in the sense of like what we talked about earlier, of like how much shit changes in 4 years, and you think about your freshman year towards your senior year, and it's like, Jesus, we changed like so much, and like, and you know, and I think that's where a lot of Cure fans just kind of fucking changed before the Wild Mood Swings came out, and then there's like heaps of fans that are probably
I got pubes and boners.
yeah, or you just moved on to
You know
different
what I mean?
bands, especially that kind of scene stuff, you know, and like music fandom, you know, yeah, like on so many
Becoming a
levels.
man.
Like, yeah, I was like, actually started to have like some kind of real relationships and shit, yeah, and then like fucking shit, you know, and even just on the sense of music fandom, you got into other bands that you were almost as crazy about and stuff, you know, you kind of threw it out there because
Yeah.
everything was a huge influence at that age, and like, so you're just
Yeah.
kind of plowing through all this shit, and it's just
Right.
crazy, you know. I had like crazy personal shit by the end of it too that definitely affected it, and you know, both of us really, if you don't mind me airing any of that, where it's just like the quick version is like huge horrible car accident, and then like my mom died like not even a year later, and this was all 95, so at the tail end of this.
Again.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Yeah, exactly. But where was Robert Smith? I blame the cure.
Where were you when I needed you?
But I mean, you had hard shit with like, we moved out of your house by the senior year and shit. I mean, it's like, that's kind of weird shit for a kid to be going through, and just in the sense of like thinking back, and even just our friendship, like you moved away like sophomore year, right? Because it was like,
yeah.
And that was a big deal because I never had like a cure kind of buddy friend that, we were just like glue by that point in high school. We're like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but if we're back to back and we can get through this, and you moved away, and I was just like, what the fuck? So now I gotta just listen to these cure tapes by myself at school. This is crazy, and it's like we lucked out in a sense. At least you just moved like a half hour away. Yeah, we weren't going to the same school, but we still like ended up probably hanging out more because we would just hang out on the weekends and shit, but it was like kind of that.
And I want to say, like, imagine being a band and doing that, but we were playing music and we were a little band.
Yeah, I know. And we changed and like just went from playing bad figurehead covers to even by the end of those 4 years, we actually had original songs we had written and I'd learned guitar, and we'd all changed that much in 4 years. It's crazy. So
and I want to say like imagine being a band and like how you changed in 4 years. But
that's what this is all about.
Recently, like my last band, the Golden Girls, like we lasted like 4 years.
Yeah.
And we slayed some shit and fucked some shit up and like got on some good tours. Like, and it lasted
the whole
4
fucking
years.
lifespan is 4 years.
Yeah.
It's like so
and
crazy.
I've changed so much in those 4 years where I like went from like a band like dissolving and like but being a Cure level thing of just like any business, any fucking band, anything you care about. Like, what does 4 years do? Like, that's a long fucking time. It like people throw 4 years like people throw time around. It's like, it just happened like 100 years ago. Like, look what happened 100 years ago. Like, we're fucking lynching motherfuckers. Like, shit was fucked up, and it's just like,
and I think
4 years, like a lot of shit can happen in 4 years, man.
And we keep even saying 4 years in the sense that like, it's just 4 years of shit happening. But I mean, I think that's the bottom line, is that it was so quiet for the first time. There was like chunks of time. And what we're going to do in this episode, after we get over our wishy-washy memories here, is like go through each year and kind of plug in what each Cure fan had to like cling to in those 4 years, and it's not too fucking much, and it's like,
and what you left in that 4 year gap.
Yeah, should we go through the years and see what did happen?
Fucking get it.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Well, let's take it back. 92 was Wish, right? So we wrap it up, and as we said in the Wish episode, the final kick in the nuts to the band for Wish was that the tour started in like right as the album came out in April, I think it was, and went all the way to fucking November. So like that whole year was like bam, 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 biggest fucking tour they've done. I mean, how does that
money?
Yeah, making that pesto. It's just like fucking cranking it out. Simon just really is a mess by the end of the tour. I think we said at the last few shows they even had to get a replacement for a few shows, just physically, mentally.
I can see why he's like,
which is just I mean, it's you see it, and at the same time it's kind of shocking because he's the fucking touchstone rock of the band in a sense. He's like the solid fucker, and it's just like, whoa, if he's like falling apart by that point, you guys definitely just need a break, and
all the bullshit he's put up with, and he was like, I'm done.
Like, it's like, and it's tough, and then like
what a crazy band, and someone to go like, like someone that's been like your boy, like,
so that had to have been
from
tough
the beginning, man, like, because the whole band was about to be done.
Because if Simon's falling apart in a sense, and and a lot of it's just
And he
personal
came
shit
back.
that he's nothing was official, and they're all supportive, and from what I could tell, and it like was just getting some good
Right.
recovery time and stuff at the end of the tour. But I mean, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, taking it from Robert's perspective too, it's like, oh shit, what's up with Simon? Lowell's already long gone at this point and moved on. Or actually, in the Wish episode, we mentioned too that it's clear now that Lowell's gonna sue the band, so that was weighing on him all through recording and touring of Wish. It's happening, yeah. So that comes up
This is
again.
some Lowell Tower 2 shit. Like
Yeah,
9
so like the ghost of Lowell is still lingering, and we'll get to that in one of these 4 years. But it's like 93. So yeah, Wish Residue is enough. That was such a successful album that they could carry it. Nobody's gonna question any silence in early '93. So they're basically riding Wish Residue, and the end of the tour. Everybody's happy, shit's kicked ass, and they're able to kind of great Cure fashion, they're able to milk it a little bit more with Show in Paris come out in '93, and that's kind of the big tie everybody over thing where the show that was recorded at Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit for Show, which comes out as a great live album. I think it's fucking amazing live album. And then Paris comes out like a month later, which is kind of a more deep cuts version of a show recorded in Paris from the same tour. But then the theatrical actual film show comes out too.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a weird thing in itself where it's a 90-minute concert film. I think it's fucking great. Yeah, I loved it.
So good.
Yeah, I recommend
Yeah,
Show
dude.
is like a better than the best does. If somebody wants to get into the Cure, I kind of feel like get Show because it's like kind of rougher on the edge versions of some songs that are a little glossier or something. I don't know. It's a better mix of songs. And but yeah, apparently Robert was like, it was weird because he said we look so boring because we don't move around. Like and then it was in hindsight, I always kind of assumed Tim Pope directed it, but he didn't. Like they had kind of had their falling out by that point.
Like they ever moved around?
Yeah, I know. I was like, you weren't really doing that much in Orange either,
Yeah,
but it
like,
was more lively
standard,
somehow.
like...
And after he said that, I kind of took that. I was like, yeah, they do seem a little more stiff in that maybe, but I mean the songs are so fucking good. It's like who cares? It's more what the Cure really does. Nobody's ever like.
And that's why like Why Can't I Be You takes me out of shit.
Yeah,
it's like why are you running around like an idiot? Like
right, it's not what you do. Just stand there.
Just
that's
stand
your
there
whole
and
thing.
get down.
Yeah,
Man.
it's like that's why you're fucking awesome. Is because you don't have to dance around and shit. So, yeah, I get that, but I mean, it also might explain why Show never came out on any kind of DVD or any release other than VHS at this point, which is shocking. Still, I mean, you could go on all day.
I'm down with just like the audio. Like,
yeah,
I'd rather have that than.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to see him.
I do. I mean, it's done. It's not like it's like it was never made. That's what kind of bothers me when shit's like out there, but it's not out there. It's like fucking put it out. Who cares? I mean, it's not like you can George Lucas it and hide it from the world at this point. I mean, it's there. It's fucking done. We all watched it. We all loved it. So why not just put it as like and hopefully, that will just eventually be like a disc that he puts in a reissue somewhere. You don't have to do a fucking epic Criterion collection or I mean, it's just like just fucking put it out. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I mean, live wise, 93 they only played one show the whole year, so that kind of shows where the band as a dynamic was at too, coming off of even though they put out Show and all this live shit, it's all
they sucked.
Well, they didn't exist really. I think the structure the structural damage was already there, even though it officially hadn't been announced. It was pretty clear Porl wasn't coming back. Simon's still kind of piecing together.
He was wishy-washy. I bet like Simon was like
yeah, I mean, I think he's just in full-on recovery mode, and then Pearl's more wishy-washy, where it's just like, yeah, I think I'm done. And then Boris, we know, is leaving, but I don't think it's official yet, but it seems probably pretty clear there, too. I'm sure they discussed all this shit on the never-ending tour, It's probably pretty clear. Yeah, they're all kind of like, we definitely need a break after this, I think, which would be understandable if you toured from April till December, it's like, how could you not, But,
From like 1978
yeah, or yeah,
till
that included
2000
too,
fucking
it's like,
whatever.
so
Like,
I think it's going to be like a pretty clear break there. And, yeah, and then that looming lull shit that comes up, and I'll probably say this more than once, but
yeah,
I think, and there was a direct quote from Robert, and I had a better placement for it, but I mean, it's something that's super apparent, is that if this is where success gets you, I don't know if I want it, because it means that, like,
right.
Lowell's fucking suing him now, the dude that's, like, his founding member with him and buddy from childhood, and it's just
Who
like,
said that?
Robert, it was like one of the early things where he's just like, if this was a success, I don't know if this is worth
Like,
it.
sweet.
And
That's
it's
cool.
and it's kind of like probably in
Yeah.
all their
Like,
minds,
this is
like, are we
fun.
who's gonna be next? It's gonna be somebody else. Like, is Simon gonna end up
Yeah.
fucking suing me now, or is the whole thing gonna just get nasty for all of us? So they probably wanted to just all kind of bow out while it was good. Wish was like the fucking, we did
Yeah.
it. We all made an album we liked, and it sold well,
And
and
had like
let's
a
just.
beautiful catalog.
Yeah,
of,
everything
like,
to that point was
or
like
just,
bam,
like,
bam, bam,
so
fucking
many fucking good records. And it's like,
undeniable.
hey, are we to get dumped together
Yeah,
and make garbage records?
right. You don't want
I
it
don't
to
know.
be like one of those things where you all one at a time slowly start turning on each other, like a heist movie or something, That'd be terrible. So, I mean, so the cracks in the foundation are definitely there. So then they move on. The only other, one of the few shining moments of the 4 years is that Burn is recorded, but it doesn't come out till 94. So we'll stay tuned and talk about that next year. But Purple Haze, remember the Purple Haze song that came out? The cover of the Jimi Hendrix. It's kind of dumb. Yeah, I mean, it was like, I don't know. I thought it was cool.
fun,
Yeah, knowing that they did something. There's two versions. The other one, like a
But
trippier one,
knowing
came out
what
on
they
Joining the
did-
Dots, but
Knowing what they made around that time, if
why not?
like there's better things that you could
Yeah.
like whilst it was fun, you
And it-
could have put in like a nice B-side, like
Yeah. Well, this is the
Like,
total one-off, and it was like, turns out it's like, we'll find out with Burn in a minute, that Robert basically did everything. The band didn't even play on it. It was just him and the producer. So it was very on par with like the later
this is when he
stuff.
sold out.
No,
right?
I mean, he just played it because they
Right,
asked him to
like-
do it in the band. I think it's because the band thought
I'm-
there
I'm
wasn't a
play-
band
I'm
right
making
now.
songs for movie soundtracks right now.
It's a tribute
Right, it was
album,
around that
man.
time where he was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So there's a few of these in
doing
this year.
tributes.
It's a
and, like, He
tribute.
probably made so much money.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just a one-off. If somebody asks you to just do a fucking cool
Psh, a
home
one-off.
recorder, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like whatever. No, it's like a whole like movie's like, hey, do you wanna?
Well, he doesn't even know if he
I'll
has a
pay you a
band
bunch of
anymore at
money.
this point, so why not? He's not gonna get, Simon out of bed to do this when he's clearly going through some shit, and like he's like, just doing it. He shouldn't have called it The Cure. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he should have just done Robert Smith, as he's done in later years, where he just does it as like a solo thing, But whatever the fuck. But yeah, it's cool. I don't know. I don't really give a shit that much about the original, so it's like whatever. To a Hendrix fan, it'd be probably a little more personal. But the rest of that soundtrack,
dude.
the rest of that tribute's a complete piece of shit. It has like Eric Clapton and Spin Doctors, Buddy Guy, Pat Metheny. I mean,
Oh,
Belly had a
I
cool
love
one.
Spin
Are you
Doctors.
experienced? They did a cool version of that, but yeah. So I don't know. It's just kind
I
of one
love
of those
Jimi
things.
Hendrix so much.
Yeah.
like this terrible tribute album.
Yeah. You're offended by being a
I,
diehard
I'm
Hendrix fan?
gonna listen to like terrible versions of.
Yeah.
Well, this is really weird though. Like
Nah.
that was a money grab. That was a money
No, he's
grab.
been on the record of being a Hendrix fan since the start, so it makes sense. It'd be like, makes total sense. Somebody asked him to do a song, he'd do it. It's not a big deal.
I'm not faulting him. I mean, you got to make some money when you're like going 4 years
Yeah.
between
cover
like
that
legit
4 year.
records.
cover
like,
that-
You got to fucking tap dance.
Cover that
like,
fucking court case that's coming up, So anyway, 94. That wraps
You
up
knew
93.
he was prep like 4 years. That was it.
Yeah.
He was prepping for that shit. He knew.
Maybe. He maybe knew. Yeah.
If you know someone that like for so long
Yeah.
and they fucking turn on you, like
It's going to be dark. So that's coming up,
that's
94.
weird.
We got the brightest moment of the gap and
I
the
can see,
darkest
like-
moment in 94. First would come
4
out as
years.
Burn, the release on the Crow soundtrack, a fucking awesome song that most Cure fans are on board with. Again, slightly just Robert Smith, though. It turned out Robert Smith was the only one that played on it other than him and Boris, and it's Boris's last song. And they actually.
Because there's like the one with the dope drums.
Yeah, and Boris just played the beat, apparently, and Robert just kind of jammed over it and wrote the song. It was initially taken from the idea that the comic, he was a big fan of the Crow comic, and they wanted to use, apparently in the comic, in the scene where he's turning into the Crow, they use Hanging Garden and actually write the lyrics for like Hanging Garden.
Fuck yeah.
And they asked him for permission, I guess, and to use it in the movie, and he's like, fuck yeah, I want to write a new song because I love the Crow so much. And usually that's like, oh, can we just use Hanging Garden? And I was like, but in this case it worked out great because he wrote fucking Burn, and it's a great song, and that scene is amazing. Yeah, it's like,
and I love that's the last of fucking Boris.
Yeah, that's pretty rad. That's like a nice one to go out
sign
on.
off.
Yeah,
Man, like
really.
I respect that guy so much. I've learned so much. Like no one has ever just rocked out like writing a beat of a whole song.
Yeah.
Where it's just like fucking toms and it's like melodic.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah, he
like,
just fucking slays.
I've learned so much from him.
And the beat
man.
is like a song in itself, you know, that it's like you throw anything else on top of it, and it's usually, I mean, it's a huge part of it for sure. And then there's a strange quote from Robert that I think I got from Never Enough. Most of these quotes and stuff are taken from the Never Enough book, but he said that it was really strange in the sense that he just played the song over Boris's beat, trying to write something, and he's like, that's how much of the top was written, was over just like him and Andy like playing like a beat, because he got, you know, Andy was pretty much the only other person that played on the top recordings, and then it's just weird to me because one of my main points of Wild Mood Swings later will be that it has a lot of strange parallels to the top for me, and I'll get into more detail on that. But so some and I think there is some topness, even though Boris won't be around, unfortunately, for Wild Mood Swings. But anyway, Burn, amazing song. Never played live, though, and maybe it is because nobody else played on it at that point. So after this point, they never play it until, like, the Voodoo Festival in New Orleans in 2013, and then it became a pretty regular one on the 2016 tour that we saw, which was awesome, and everybody was fucking on board to hear that. You know, it was definitely
the
like...
The crowd is just coming.
Yeah, it was like I think everybody's fucking favorite moment of every show, pretty much, you know? It's just like... so good. But I mean, I wonder if it was because nobody else really had any attachment to it because they weren't actually on the fucking recording, you know? So it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, maybe that's why he never played it, because it always seems so strange, like even on the Wild Mood Swings tour and shit. Yeah, I was like, why would you not? That song rules. Yeah, like, it's so weird. Why would
that song hits hard, like,
and they clearly can do it, but yeah, for some reason just never dug it up until then. But yeah, so 94 too, aside from that shining moment of the Crow, it gets pretty dark pretty quick. There are no live shows the whole year of 94. Boris officially leaves, kind of cited as he's going to play with his girlfriend, Caroline Crawley, and her band, but I think it was more just kind of I want to just get out of this. Yeah, like, not in any bitter way. Definitely everybody's on good terms. But yeah, I think it's like a smaller shows, just getting away from this fucking massive stuff. Pearl officially
and they could
leaves.
Legit do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're doing. They're like, it'd be funner to just play some small shows and do stuff like that. And speaking of doing what you want, Pearl, I think it pretty much confirmed that he was already out by 93, but Pearl leaves to play with Plant and Page, two of my personal heroes. And, and then he said this time when Pearl left, we were shaking hands and smiling, and, you know, of course, why would he not go play with his heroes and record with them and then do the tour in 95? So it's the last we'll see of Pearl till 413. And then Simon is still on the rocks, so we don't really know what's up with him, but he's laying low in 94 and just getting better. And then the ultimate darkness comes in February 94. Lowell's court case officially starts. That'll last from February till September, so like pretty much the whole fucking year. and it gets crazy intense, constant
It's the
like
worst year.
lawyer talk that seems to really just hit Robert hard. Where he's like, "I've never talked to lawyers so much in my life," and stuff like that. Where it's just like,
You know what's conducive to like making fucking noise and art?
yeah,
Is
exactly.
legal bullshit.
Nothing will kill the art boner quicker than being in court from February to September.
Totally.
So, to, it's to put it in Donaldish terms, but
No, art boner is a fucking thing.
yeah, I think it's a thing, right? But yeah, it's like, and it's just crazy how I remember reading every printed anything that the Cure said from Disintegration up, and there's just so much like Robert and the band joking and making fun of Lowell at this point in the press, where it's just like, yeah, that bridge is like as burned as it could fucking get. This is they're never gonna be cool again, and this is like horrible. And I mean, just following that from a kid fan perspective was like, this is pretty nuclear. And so yeah, I mean, it was like, considering just ending the band, like I said earlier, he said that what the fuck is the point of this? Everybody's like, gonna bow out at some point. So we lost Poro anyway. We lost Boris, and we lost even David Allen, the producer.
We lost all the good things.
Basically fell out. Yeah, and that's kind of, I've said in past episodes where he's kind of the unsung hero. I think, I don't know what the fuck this dude's deal is, because no one ever talks about him. But Dave Allen, the co-producer of the golden era for me anyway, from like Head on the Door through Wish, apparently had some kind of falling out in the Wish production phases where they weren't happy with some of the way stuff came out in Wish, and went back and forth. So he's pretty much done and won't come up again. So that's a pretty big loss,
and
I
you can
think.
hear the difference.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna be a huge thing I want to bring up with Wild Mood Swings, was just like the production shit, for better or worse. Something's just not there, just like it's not the right sounds and tones, and and it's just like, and it's
like,
always good to try different stuff, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
And this dude fucking had his finger on the pulse for sure. It's hard to say, because Robert Smith is really kind of carrying the ship, but at the same time, something, I don't know. You don't just stumble into 4 albums like that without, you know what I mean? It's like, it just doesn't really make sense.
I think like Robert Smith is like, he's always been very like, I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And now, like, in these 4 years, like, everyone has tons of money. Like, everyone that was in the band, like, leading up to it, like, because they hit it hard, and I think they made a lot of money.
Oh yeah, through Wish and Disintegration, it was like,
and they could kind of say like, hey, now I'm kind of done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm
I think everybody was like, just finally, like, and that's why I'm saying they're leaving. It isn't like, any of these are bad terms as far as I know. It seems like all of them are like, yeah, we had a good run. I'm stepping out while it's good. I don't want it to get ugly and shit, so it's definitely respectable.
And these are the songs that you make when you have that luxury,
Yeah. And going back to the lulledness of it, is that nobody wants it to get to this point, and I think
that's what he wrote about. Was like, lol. He was like, this album's a diss album.
Maybe,
like,
I don't know.
Lol.
It should have been more.
I need to listen to the second half of it.
Yeah, I mean, if he had made it more blatant, it probably would have been a better album, I think, because it's like, clearly, how could this not be pissing him off? Yeah, like a fucking rap album where he just destroys Lowell. But even with the Lowell case, I mean, it's not really fair to just harp on him through this, because if you read his book, which most Cure fans have, you really do see that even he's apologizing for how ridiculous all this was, and it admits that it's all out of bitterness. But in the sense of Cure history, we do have to admit this is the one time that it's like, what the fuck, Lowell? Like, he was suing for more royalty money, even though he's getting shit from Disintegration, which paid for this court trial probably, the album that we all know he didn't do anything on. And it's like, and then even the Cure name, that was like the more insulting kind of part, I think, that was really like, it was like he was like suing for like ownership of the name. So like, technically, if Lowell had won, like, Robert might not have even been able to use the fucking name The Cure anymore.
some
anyway.
Hot
Because
Topic shit.
it's just
He's trying to
it's
get
like
some
he's gonna
Hot
form a
Topic
different band
bullshit
with the Cure
t-shirt
name.
money.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's just like it's like what and it was kind of sad because like Robert had all these quotes where it was like I just tried to avoid court so much, like in the Never Enough book. He just all these direct quotes where he's saying he's like I tried to just even tell Lowell or his people it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money. You're not gonna win, Lowell. You're not gonna win, and so they battle on for a year.
It's gonna be worse for you.
Yeah, and you know, guess what?
Yeah.
Lowell loses. Lowell's left with like $1 million. It was like roughly $1 million legal bill, but luckily he had been making so much money at that point that he actually could pay for it. Hard times would come later. He gets a divorce.
$1 million is a lot of money.
Yeah. So and then he admits in his book again that was a horrible idea and it was mostly done out of bitterness. You think? so it
I
was
think
just
so.
Yeah, that's what he said. He was like, yeah, that was dumb. It was out of bitterness, and that's all part of his redemption. So if anybody wants to read the full story, it's very well written and an awesome book. So definitely get Lowell's Cured book. It's like just tells the tale of hitting rock bottom, and you know how they do fix the friendship. And I think everybody in the band, even he seems pretty cool with everybody again, and it just shows, wow, all right, I guess he can overcome this shit, but just for the moment of being a little bit harsh. And you know, I think everybody is on board with, you know, Lowell had a fucking huge part to play in those early things and is, you know, a sweet dude, and the book tells all that too. But in this case of this moment in 1994, it was shitty in the sense, and somebody brought it up, and so much bashing goes on fucking online still. Even when I see it, I'm like, come on, man, fucking, it's done, get over it, you know. Like people be like, fuck Lowell and all this, and but like one dude actually threw out a comment. He was like, but the worst part of the whole court case was that it fucking killed the band in momentum wise and ruined everything they did from then on. And I was just like, whoa. In a sense, I mean, I don't know if I agree with it all the way through,
like
but
record.
yeah, but I mean, there is a little bit of truth to that, and it's like, and it's hard to say because like we're saying at this point,
year shit.
Yeah,
it was fast, and that's.
And to be fair, like we're saying though, like they were probably just gonna take a pretty long break at this point anyway. So you don't know.
He deserved it.
But during that break, he doesn't need to be doing a fucking court case for a year. You know what I mean? And it's like, and if you look, at the momentum of the band, Disintegration was their biggest fucking album. Wish did great, you know, it was like a platinum album. The Friday with Love is fucking huge.
And it was like Wish came out in the money grab period.
Yeah. So I mean, technically, if they fucking just waited 2 years or whatever the minimum was at that point, I think everybody was kind of already shifting to that kind of thing through the 80s. Everybody was putting out an album every year. By that point, I think everybody was kind of at least doing an album like every 2 or 3 years.
But it was like a money grab time period, and they could have fucking made some money like as a band. Yeah, but they're dealing with like fucking Lowell, like
yeah. I mean, and in that sense of what we talked about earlier with the dirtiness of it, maybe that was a factor of kind of subconsciously or consciously of like why Boris and Pearl and everybody bowed out anyway.
Just left.
Yeah, because they were like, we don't want to get to this
stupid.
point. Like Robert's saying, is this success? Dumb. If this is it, if this is what it means to be on top, then we don't want to do that, you know. And it does kind of suck because I mean, maybe the dude did have a valid point online by bashing Lowell in that regard. He's like, he fucking really sunk the boat in a sense because it was like, damn.
Hashtag that dude, man. Like,
I mean, it's so harsh, and you know, knowing all the shit that was going on.
It is harsh,
but at the same time,
that's how I feel about that big transition in those 4 years of where they went.
Yeah, and if nothing else, like he's too distracted to write songs or great songs. You know what I mean? Like it's just something to think about, especially with the perspective of the band and momentum, and, you know. But who knows? Dude. Maybe they would have just kind of done Wild Mood Swings. That's kind of our $1 million question that we'll say over again at the end. But it's like, would this have been the album they had made next anyway, or did all these 4 years matter? Who knows?
Of course,
but I think a huge part of it, it's this kind of dirtiness of this trial. Yeah, how could that not affect, you know, the band and just the way that time goes on, like we're saying with the scene and stuff, by them like throwing a fucking, you know, flat tire in the bus at that point, yeah, it slowed the band down for sure, because then they couldn't just keep progressing with the times and stuff, because it's just like wrapped up in a fucking court case. So that does suck, But and if
That's
my rough
terrible.
math is right, they won't kind of mend their friendship until another 6 years, maybe, which is still kind of surprisingly short for how severe all this really was. But I don't know. But
If I started lashing out at you
yeah,
like Lowell did, like that'd be crazy. You'd be fucked up because you're like,
yeah,
you'd be like, what
you'd
the?
make you so mad and just heartbroken. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
your buddy, your kid. The whole fucking first chapter of the book's about how they get
Like,
on the school bus
why are you
together. As little
changing?
kids.
Why are you
They-
changing
yeah, it's
for the
like,
worse?
It's just so sad. It's
Yeah.
like you never want to see that. Everyone's just so happy that everything's cool again.
Yeah.
It's like, so I mean, I don't even mean that I feel bad bringing it up, but I mean it's fucking history and it's the way it
Yeah,
is.
dude.
But at the same time, it's like that was just a big monkey wrench in it. It's just
And he really
unfortunate. So yeah, I mean, definitely read the book if anybody's like kind of unsure or whatever, because it really does paint the full picture that there was a lot going on both sides of the spectrum. And well, let's move on from the Lowell trial. We all know how that went.
That's just
So,
heavy, man. I don't like.
Yeah, like I said, it's dark times, man.
It
Nobody
is.
said this episode would be chipper. This is the dark episode. But let's move on to 95-ish. This is where it gets a little more clouded because
That's when I got my first boner.
yeah, this is the first 95. Oh yeah, that's
winter.
oh, that was really you're like senior year of high school. might want to check the math on that again. But,
No, I'm
but
serious.
oh, all right. Well, good on you, man. better than never. 94ish. I wrote this one as 94ish into early 95, and then into 96. So this all kind of blends. Like even during, I guess, the end of the court trial, maybe Robert somewhere gets the spark of the bug to record again, even though there's no sign of life around him anywhere, and like this horrible shit going on. I guess he feels like he has enough songs, or at least just has the desire to we're gonna do it. Let's make a new album. Yeah, and then there's something in that. But then like going back to what we said of like Poral's out, Boris is out. What do we got? So basically Perry is and Simon's kind of on the table. We don't know what's up with Simon at this point.
And that's
So
why
basically
Perry's
it's
dope. Perry's
yeah, it's Robert and Perry, the dude that was just like, oh, sure, I'll do it. So he's like fucking
He
right hand
navigated
man.
that like church.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's like just in the span of one album, he's like now the fucking co-captain. That must have been terrifying. The
It's like,
poor
what
dude
do you
is just
think
like,
of this
what?
guitar part?
Like, yeah, he's like, how about playing all of Poral's parts from the last? He's like, oh,
I know,
Jesus."
like playing like all
I
this
just
crazy gnarly
I
shit.
kind of wanted to play some low keyboards, It's like, but yeah, but Perry takes it on, man. He's a good sport, and
That's why
so
he's
Robert's
the
unhappy,
dude, man.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, David Allen's out, so Robert kind of knows that if he's going to do a new record, he's got to find a producer because he doesn't want to do it totally on his own. So he starts there was some backstory in Never Enough of like he ends up going to this or that, and somehow he ends up meeting Steve Lyon, who had become the producer of Wild Mood Strings, Mild Mood Swings. And,
That's my emo
basic-
band name when
Wild
I was
Mood
in
Strings.
college. Wild Mood Strings.
Yeah. But basically, Steve Lyon worked with Depeche Mode, and I guess maybe through Perry and like his brother, who'd be like their tour dude that all the touring fans know more about, Daryl Bamonte. So there's a strong Depeche Mode connection, and I guess Steve Lyon produced a bunch of the awesome Depeche Mode albums, and it kind of went on record being like not a huge Cure fan, and Robert liked that. He was like, oh cool, we'll try something different. So the Steve Lyon dude's kind of like officially signed on, but they're still feeling out a ton of initial ideas. And this kind of gets into what we normally would do as the pre-story of like the Wild Mood Swing stuff. So we might recap some of this when we do Wild Mood Swings, but just for the sake of us leading to where we are in this 4-year gap, there's like yeah, it gets complicated because there's a few like scrapped ideas apparently of like Wild Mood Swings initially he thought maybe we should do it all as like an acoustic album, not like The Cure Unplugged, but just because there is like tons of acoustic guitars on it again
That would
and
have
shit. Like
been way better.
yeah, it might have been because it was like initially I'm kind of like, ugh, you're not like seniors at this point, like why,
Yeah,
but at the
you could
same
do
time,
whatever you want, and
yeah.
that's
And when you hear, and like the album was even going to be called Bear, that's where that last song Bear comes from, I guess, where it was like going to be more Bear because it's acoustic,
it's
and that
stupid.
song's like straight up a carrot. Yeah, so I don't know about that
He
idea,
ended
but
it
like
with end, and he's gonna restart
he's
it
doing
with
Bear.
bear.
I knew you would like that. Based on the last episode, I knew you would. I put a little star next to that. I was like, Donald would love the literal take on this. But I mean, when you do listen to like Jupiter Crash and like This Is a Lie, you kind of see how maybe that was the case. And, maybe not such a terrible idea. Some theme might have been better than no theme. They kind of went with the no theme for Wild Mood Swings, where it's like, that's why it's crazy because there's no, the mood swings thing where it's like it's all over the fucking place.
You've
And that's
listened
like,
to this record more than I have. Like I can't think
yeah,
of.
definitely. But well, do you think it's fair that like this album is strange in the sense because Wild Mood Swings or Wish kind of did it where it went back to the Kiss Me formula of like it's poppy but dark but still had a mood, and it's like that's what the Cure's fucking excels at is having like an atmosphere and a mood for each album. Not so much a theme even maybe, but just like a mood with the recording. But like the mood is all over the
It's
fucking place with
laissez-faire.
yeah, and I think it is just
And
because it was recorded so sporadically and it has so many like convoluted parts and stuff, and it's just like but they kind of tried to embrace that as like it's like just a diverse all over the place
like
album,
whoop
but
de
I don't know.
doo.
Yeah, and it's like that's why I kind of feel like if they did do the acoustic thing, it almost like some theme would have been better than the no theme. So I
Totally,
don't know.
dude. Like
It's all
in that 4
speculating, but
years, like if you weren't dealing with fucking Lowell dragging your fucking ass down and like taking up all your time, you could
right.
have constructed like
Some
one
kind of theme or
could
mood,
have
yeah.
like I would like this is always what I want to I wish it was just like an orchestral. I've talked about this
Yeah.
previously, but like after Wish, just like an orchestral,
Yeah.
like just vocals and like strings and shit, like just the whole record of that,
Yeah.
like that would have been.
What's funny you mentioned
That
that
would've
because I stumbled across
fucked
some
up
stuff
some
that
shit.
thought that maybe that was actually a possibility, and so we'll get to that in a minute. But
no,
like,
I read about that. Like,
did you catch that with
yeah,
like
dude.
Dread Song and all that too?
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But like, and there is like tons more like string shit on there, like This Is a Lie and stuff, and
yeah,
I'll definitely get into that more. But like, there's the alternate like version of This Is a Lie that's on Join the Dots that I think is way better. It's like all strings and like nothing until like
yeah,
some
dude.
acoustic guitar comes in near the end, and then like at the very end some drums, but it's like
Yeah,
all just him singing over it. It's so much better. I mean, that's like almost like a fucking single. Like wow, that's like
why
I
didn't
love
you
that
put
song. I
that
can't even
out?
yeah, and
You
it's just
know?
so weird. And we'll get into that too, where it's just like
We're getting
the
into it.
mixing, picking what was picked. It's like everything's just so scattered with Wild Mood Swings. But even before the final product, that process of Wild Mood Swings, just in the early stages. Okay, it's not an acoustic album. I think that kind of went out the window with the idea that Roger comes back. He had sent him some demos and he was like, all right, I don't know. There was some talk of like Roger by the end of Disintegration not getting along with Pearl or Boris, which is weird. It's hard to say what, but like there was some mention of that and stuff. But then if they're gone, then maybe that's the reason why he came back. So Roger's back and he's throwing all kinds of keys and shit on stuff, so that kind of ruins the acoustic idea, I think, maybe. But at the same breath, Simon commits, he's back in action now, and he's like, all right, let's fucking do this, which is definitely like a saving grace, I think, because I've not confirmed a lot of them, but a lot of the best songs, I think, on Wild Mood Swings are like based off of Simon demos and shit, so like finally he's like, all right, let's do this. Maybe not work
you
into
want to
full
do
capacity.
This, asshole, let's do it. Like,
Yeah, and
let's
it's like because there
go.
are some fucking rad bass lines on Wild Mood Swings, and I'll get to that too. And it's like, all right, my boy's back in action, and it's like the fucking stallion, he isn't down, he's back. He
It's
just
like, you want
needed
to make a fucking pop song, asshole? Let's do
yeah,
it. Like,
he needed a reasonable 2 year
he's like
break.
calling
That's
a bluff.
understandable. So, yeah, well, he's a fucking trooper, man. He's back. He took his breather, and now he's like back in the saddle. So that's good.
Right, dude.
But
But if you've been
yeah,
playing music with someone for so long,
yeah,
and have like a very intense relationship, like it's just
yeah.
like knowing someone and then doing business with
Mm-hmm.
someone. I feel like there's a lot of business going on, and I think that tainted the whole record. Like people had to make big decisions in the band.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
maybe.
like, I love you, but am I still like, this is
Saying that
stupid?
Simon maybe jumped the gun, but he was just doing it because he was like the business side of it, where it's like I got to get back to work kind of thing, or
No, but he had to make the decision. And I think
yeah,
everyone in the band had to make that decision of just like,
yeah,
is just, is this just for like, playing music and making art, or
yeah.
do we continue on this like this money, making
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
and I don't.
Well, I don't think it's so much the money thing, but it is
But
your
it's
job
and
and it
I'm not.
is your what you're passionate about. I mean, I'm sure it's
Yeah,
not like they're
like,
like, oh,
how
but
do
I think that maybe
how
the
do you
better and
profit
bigger
from doing what
question,
you want?
uh,
You
but
know?
that's what I mean. Maybe the bigger and better question is that not so much that like we need to get back into the workforce as like more is that the clock is ticking as we've
Right.
said from the start, but in a sense maybe it would have been better to wait even longer, dare I say. You know what I mean? It's like
Dare
the
I
the
say.
problem with Wild Mood Swings is that it somehow still ended up being kind of rushed, even though we keep
Yeah.
talking about how long this gap was. It still
After 4 years, it
is.
sounds rushed. Shut
Yeah,
up.
and it's because a fucking year of it was wasted on the Lowell trial, and a
Yeah.
fucking year was wasted on just dicking around with show and doing
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, it's like so far we've seen like a lot of it isn't really, is like well deserved time off, but at the same time, when it gets down to production time or whatever, they
Like,
just didn't have the fucking concept or the full like
he's not like
prep that they normally.
laissez-faire making records in France.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were
It's
in
just
the
like
zone in the old ones. Yeah,
it's like a stress.
and
So
it's
you're
like,
just, all this
yeah.
a stress situation with all this bullshit.
But along those lines of the drummer, that's the other big fucking wrinkle in like whatever the fuck. At this point, Robert has decided to start recording without even having a drummer. He's kind of just resigned to the idea of like getting a session drummer for the album. He's like, well,
Because
whatever,
Boris is gone.
Yeah, Boris is gone. So I mean, I think fairly early in it, from when I don't know, it's like hard because to piece the full timeline because it was so stretched out. But I mean, because half of like there's a good chunk of Wild Mood Swings, and I'll get into the specifics more when we do the actual album of like which songs aren't even Jason on it. There's actual songs on Wild Mood Swings that aren't even him, but they did like auditions like while they're recording the album, and some of the b-sides are like kind of the audition songs and shit, even like three or four like drummers that aren't you never hear from again, but they played
Yeah.
on like a b-side or something. And I think he redid a few, so he's on the majority of the album. But yeah, so they get like auditions going, and of course it all leads to the eventual hiring of Jason Cooper, who turns out was like a huge Cure fan, but he kind of kept it not known like through the whole like hiring process
He
and kind of
wasn't a
played
metal
dumb.
dude.
Nah, yeah.
Like,
Apparently they
that's her,
said no
like, just don't.
metalheads
That
was
was
in
their
the ad.
standards. Like, don't be a metal guy.
Yeah, which is fucking perfect. And I love Jason Cooper's drumming. I think it's great. It's definitely different than Boris's, but I mean,
Yeah.
like, I think he nails all the parts. He's perfect. I think he definitely kind of like Wild Mood Swings as an album. I think he kind of unfairly gets lumped into this whole time period, and people like,
The drumming's fucking beautiful on that record.
Yeah, they kind of make him like the easy target because it's the difference, and they're like, oh, that's the reason why it doesn't work. And I don't think that's the case. I think he really does some cool shit. I feel like maybe some production shit where I don't like the way the drums sound on a lot of the songs, but like I don't really know how much of. I mean, that's probably just as much Robert to blame on that as the producer Jason, or just like he's just fucking playing it,
like, It doesn't sound like it used to.
Yeah, and it's just
and
different, you can't
like
because. Yeah, and I mean, of all the live shit, I've never heard like a live one where I'm like some of them just as a band, they don't sound as great as it did. But I mean, I've never been like, he's just totally fucking up that lull beat, he nails it. I think it's So you cool with the drum beats then, being a drummer? I mean, I know that was a hard blow, like transitioning from Boris, like all of us, but did he grow on you? Did you just kind of like associate him with the times, like I was saying, or where do you stand with him?
And
yeah, every song apparently knew the fucking back catalog going into it too. It's like they pulled out way more obscure shit with him on board than Boris ever did. I'm sure Boris could do it if he wanted, but but it's just kind of cool that he's able to do it all. It's like yeah. At this point, it's funny, too. He's been the drummer longer probably than any of them.
I know.
A lot of the active years or whatever, however you want to do it. But it's like I think he's probably maxed out all of them for sure. So they got this drummer, and now we're getting into like the actual early recording stages. But the cool, weird twist was somehow while they were recording this, and I think that's one of the kind of weird factors of however you want to take it with Wild Mood Swings, is it is one that they just fucking are in the studio for like the whole 95, like the whole year. The album doesn't come out till 96, so I mean they just spent like a year in the fucking studio on this thing. And
we're in this mansion in Wales, and we're I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't like they're just being frivolous. It sounds like they're just like shit, just like patching shit. Yeah, and it's so weird because it seems like they just threw it together in a sense.
And
but
that's
like,
what you did.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But it's a year, and in that year though, somehow they recorded during these sessions and released within that year.
Better songs,
maybe. No, worse. We got a couple more little ones that tie us over. Young Americans, the David Bowie cover, somehow was recorded for some weird XFM compilation thing. Chris Perry, every time I read about it, I get kind of bored and confused. I don't really know. Some like radio station thing that Chris Perry was starting to put together. And so Robert Smith was like, yeah, of course I love David Bowie. Let's record this song. He said initially he wanted to do it like it was an acoustic cover. Maybe he was on his acoustic bugs at that point,
That would have been dope, acoustic.
Yeah, maybe a little better. I'm not too crazy about the actual Bowie song, Young Americans. It's fun, but I don't know. It's a little... And then their cover is kind of ridiculous, too. I mean, it's exactly like the song, pretty much, but like The Cure doing it. So I think however you feel about Young Americans in general is how you would feel about The Cure's cover of Young Americans. But
I think you're a terrible person for not liking that fucking song.
You love that song?
I love that fucking song, and I love the fucking...
Yeah.
I love,
kind of
like,
annoying.
Bowie's... I love Bowie's jam.
And I mean, on the right day.
The Cure's cover, it was... I think
you're on board.
It's a very sweet cover of a song, like... Be it The Cure or Bowie or whatever, it's a very sweet... It's a very sweet cover, and you're a dick.
All right, cool. Well, I'll take that, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of annoying.
What did you like about it? Why would you not like that?
It's kind of an annoying song to me. I don't know why. It just doesn't sound very... I like the, like... But, like...
Right.
Well, I love it. I'm glad that you like a peppy, weird Cure and Bowie song, and I don't. So that's good. It's like...
You're a creep, man. I just learned this about
It's all goofy
man.
On that. Yeah,
That's
well, there you
weird.
go. What about Dread Song? How do you feel about that one? Do you recall that one even? It came out for the Judge Dredd's soundtrack, the Sylvester Stallone hit film from nowhere. That apparently Robert Smith was again a very big fan of the comic. The movie flopped. The song's horrible in my opinion. One of the worst Cure songs ever written. I know Chaz likes it, so I'll try not to be too harsh. but
I like the drums on it, like the programmed drums. Like
yeah.
I don't know if that was a real drummer. I felt like it was like drum machines.
Probably was, yeah, because it was probably in those early stages. I
sounded,
can't recall off the top of my head.
I kind of like that about this song.
Going back to your earlier orchestral idea of the band, though, in the Join the Dots liner notes, he said this was the one we overreached our orchestral abilities on, because the strings are off the fucking chart on this. Like, what are they doing? It's like they're playing like a whole different song. It's like and he's just like, never say it's over. It's like so much strings going on.
It goes
it's like
hard.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what we made fun of with the Torn Down, where it's like sounds like the fucking Batman soundtrack or something. Where it's like, Jesus Christ, what is going on? It's just like everything's like just so dramatic. It was like,
calm down, like stop it, like take a breath, assholes.
It's like he's being all like, kind of goes back to my not liking Fight that much too. He's just being way too inspirational. Like, I don't want Robert Smith to ever tell me things are gonna be okay. It's like, no, you're not the dude I turn to when I want to feel positive about
stop
something.
This record, like,
give
me what I need.
And I always love that everybody, like, when they talk about this song, they go, it's the best part of Judge Dredd. I'm like, wow, it's like my least favorite Cure song, and it's the best part of the movie. So I think I watched like half of that movie on cable. It's so bad,
Like, the sewer doesn't smell that bad today. But it's a bit of that, just like...
Yeah. Well, would you like to hear something I stumbled across for this song? I found a weird rabbit hole for this song when I looked it up, because I didn't really have anything other than those two things from the Join the Dots on like Judge Dredd, and then somehow I fucking stumbled across this song. I'm gonna read it real quick and just bear with me. And it was from Wikipedia, so who the fuck knows? Maybe somebody's just like totally feeding bullshit into it, but it was under the Wikipedia entry for Catch, the fucking song Catch, and it says the song lyrics for Catch. So the song lyrics, as written by Robert Smith, were inspired when Robert Smith caught a broadcast of Sylvester Stallone's written film Rocky II, in which Rocky's wife, Adrian, falls into a coma during childbirth. In a desperate hope to revive his wife, Rocky writes a poem to Adrian, which at one point reads, And you kept trying to slip so I could catch you. This moment moved Robert Smith, and years later, and wrote Catch, apparently, based on Rocky II. And years later, when Stallone caught wind of this story, he asked The Cure to write the theme song for the 1995 film Judge Dredd. Smith, being a longtime fan of the British comic series, immediately began work. It's like, fuck yeah, Sylvester Stallone asked me for Judge Dredd. And the song became Dredd Song. Doesn't end there. This began a friendship, and in 1998, both were to lend their respective voices to an episode of South Park that would serve as a sequel to the episode Smith appeared in which Robert Smith saves the world from Mecha Streisand. The episode with Stallone, though, never came to fruition due to the actor's strike, but Trey Parker claimed, we were going to have Rambo on a crazy rampage in South Park, and the boys would be forced to once again call upon the amazing Robert Smith, but the whole idea got scrapped. So, what the fuck? Really? Robert Smith and Sylvester Stallone are like pen pals based on Catch, so it forever ruined Catch, this beautiful song. That's like one check. I was like, what? It's based off of Rocky too? So I don't know. Maybe it's true. Wikipedia.
I can't. I can't even.
You can't accept any of that?
I can't even. It's so fucking funny.
I just can't imagine those two hanging out. I don't know. Call me crazy. Maybe it's me.
But it all makes sense.
Being open-minded enough. But yeah, it's so fucking weird. Who would just make that up and like plug that into Wikipedia, but we do live in weird times where maybe that was
Is this a
somebody's idea.
conspiracy theory or
I
is
don't
it
know. That's the
actual?
beauty of Wikipedia. Anyone can just type it in. So just like, wow, all right. Almost like shit. I should look up every Cure song. That's like a whole other podcast. It's just based on Wikipedia entries.
I'll take
But
it. I'll take it.
yeah,
And
that takes us to the end of 95. There are a couple miscellaneous things that during this, because 96 is when Wild Mood Swings finally does come out. But
Jesus,
before we
that
get
was
into
such
that,
a
a few.
long time.
Yeah, before even getting into that, sprinkled in, apparently Robert Smith got into gardening, so that was a good amount of time that could be credited to gardening. He is also spending heaps of times with his 20 plus nieces and nephews by that point. He's got a huge extended family, which I remember him talking about in an MTV interview when Wild Mood Swings finally came out. And so I could go a lot of nieces and nephews. And apparently he would just pop in and like grab a bunch of kids and take them to Euro Disney for the weekend and be a good uncle. Uncle Bob, just having fun. So that's pretty rad.
And he was in his early 30s.
Mid, yeah.
Mid
Yeah,
30s.
mid 30s. So yeah, he's still, energetic enough to get in there and do it. And just the changing music scene, a lot of people credit, but I don't know. I feel like Britpop's blowing up. These are all bands that we definitely were, kind of getting into our like rocking phases of like stuff that influenced us a lot. But I mean, I feel like Blur and Oasis and Pulp, are the huge ones that we, that were pretty prominent.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't think that's like a huge drastic jump from The Cure, but a lot of people are like, times had moved on in the 4 years, and especially British pop music had forgotten about The Cure and moved on. And maybe just because everything was moving so fast in the 90s by that point, but
Yeah,
wasn't
totally,
like,
dude. Like,
but I mean,
it's a different landscape. Like,
yeah.
if you look at like him and his Robert Smith in his early years and The Cure in their early years, like,
but I mean, did they ever really fit with the landscape
they got
though?
down on it, and
I mean, other than like Susie and New Order and shit, though, I mean, did they ever really fit with it?
but they're active, like,
Yeah.
versus 4 years of doing nothing. Like, they were
Yeah,
active,
I think that's the key
like
word.
Robert
Is just,
Smith got down on shit, and he was active in his life.
yeah.
Like, he was, I'm gonna quote Oprah. I wish I
Uh-huh.
could remember some Oprah quotes, but
Sounds like you're about to.
he was living his full life, man.
Aw.
Like,
Back then
versus,
or now?
yeah, back then versus during that time period, like that 4 years, man. Like, imagine imagine going hard, living your full life,
Yeah.
like for so long, and it slayed, and you were successful.
And you mean musically. I mean, obviously, he's
Yes.
probably way more fulfilled hanging out with his nieces and nephews at Euro Disney at this
Yeah.
point than like dealing with whatever the fuck NME has to say about anything. But it's
If you're living your full life to that extent where you're pumping out records, like,
Yeah.
your home life is fine.
yeah.
Like, you can't do that without, like, you can't do one without the other. Like,
Mm-hmm. When this finally does come out in May, like, I mean, we're in our college, but also just first year out of or high school. I mean, that's a pretty drastic new shift in time, and I remember that just being epic to be like a sort of pseudo adult and like having this new Cure album coming out, and I definitely want to go into that more with the actual album and the personal attachment of like when it finally did come out. It felt like it was the first Cure album that I was like, man, I was just a little boy when Wish came out. Now I'm like, I'm fucking driving around and, and seeing the world and doing shit, and it's just like,
I'm a man
obviously
now.
still, yeah, and it's like, so shit had moved on for us. I mean, whether it's true or not with the music scene or the world, who knows, but it's like, I mean, we had just entered a whole fucking different ball game by that point, by 96 for sure. But even by the start of 96, like, they were still having trouble, and the huge final point on the pre-production of Wild Mood Swings was they ran out of time somehow still on it, like, and they had to outsource all the fucking mixes, and that's why like a lot of the production stuff's weird. And Steve Lyon and him kind of have like a, where they went back and forth going like, what? Why would you choose this
He's
song?
like,
Why would you
I don't
choose
like
this
where
mix?
this is going.
Yeah, nobody did apparently. Well, what do you think of this? I guess it's technically we touched on it early on, but do you think now, seeing the full spectrum of those full years, do you think it's like, would this have been the same album if he had made it right after? Or do you think that, obviously, I mean, we know that like all the time affected these songs, but I mean, do you think it would have drastically affected it based on who was in the band? Could have Boris and Pearl and all, if the crew had stuck around? Would it have, if he had these exact songs, I guess is what I'm saying, would they have changed much, or would it still kind of been this kind of album, or do you think it would have been like Wish 2.0 maybe or something? It's hard to say,
I don't think,
you know what I mean?
I don't think it would have happened.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
You think it just would have been a totally different album?
No.
Like,
well, that's an interesting question, because I feel like that's a fucker, man. Like,
because I feel like the main thing, and we'll go into with the Wild Mood Swings again, so sorry for being redundant in the future, but
it's like what would have they done?
Yeah, and it's weird though, because like one thing going through these podcast episodes that we touched on a lot was like how, like, even when he was like, fuck it, Disintegration, this might be my solo album, but then everybody's like, no, we want to be a part of this, and then they all presented demos too. You don't really hear too many stories of everyone else bringing shit to the table for this album the way they did. It's like kind
like,
of from
out.
Head on the Door up. Head on the Door was pretty much all Robert, but then like Kiss Me and stuff, they like everything from Kiss Me Up, it was all like, we're all just having fucking whole sessions of like demos and voting on demos and this and that, and there's
like,
all these outtakes.
Like what we've been talking about is just like, well, what would he do on his own?
Yeah,
and this is what he does on his own. It's like, it's not this orchestral fucking dramatic choral thing, like,
and it goes back to the Top argument, and I'll harp on this more later, but it was like that's kind of when everybody always said was the Robert solo album that wasn't a solo album, and it was like, because he was calling all the shots, but at the same time,
second solo album,
it wasn't. But at the same time, he still wasn't really doing it all the way.
He's not even doing it right.
And then you can't blame him because he's just being a good dude, and he's still trying to make it a band, And he's like, it's kind of like that guy that's doing the right thing, but if in a sense, he probably should have just said fuck off to everybody. Probably would have been better, because then he could have just, it was almost like he's getting some input, but not enough, and from the wrong people, maybe, and it's just like, and I like the record, so that's something to take into it. I don't know,
and it was a time period when like shit was gnarly with like the music scene, like, and labels and stuff, and like.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit going on.
He navigated like where there was
anything through that.
Like, all those terrible bands, that made so much money.
It's fucked. Yeah, there was so much horrible shit going on in '96 that like we could probably dig up during the Wild Mood Swings episode. But it's just like, good God, yeah. It was. It's kind of a ridiculous, magical time to have a Cure album. So, it was kind of like the big... And that's why, like, the sentimental value and the big sigh of relief when they finally did step in. And it was the next 4-chapter year of, like, our lives, in a sense, where they did finally swoop in, for better and worse of the actual content of the album. But, it's like I was... And, like we talked about with Wish, like, how much is it sentimental? And definitely more of it a fault of, like, just being... sentimental attachment to Wild Mood Swings. But that's a huge album, and like I was just so happy to have some good memories that we'll get into coming up soon. But like, it's like it was a good time and a bad time. It was the best of times and the worst of times. So
I don't
4 years,
like, it was the best of times. It was terrible.
Starting in '96 was all right. That was different. That's like a whole weird 96 to on. That's pretty good. It was like post high school.
I had the best years of my life
in '96.
Oh God, Yes.
You don't even remember those years. I played in a band with you. I know you weren't having the best.
Nah, I feel like
but they were better than the 4 years before that, right?
I feel like they're all garbage, but
until the last 4 years.
Like...
That's good. You live in the moment. That's good. You know. I know you don't have any sentimental attachment to anything. Apparently, we've learned that on this podcast.
I have no attachments to anything. Much like wild schmood swings.
I'm glad that you're so convinced that every day you become a better man and wiser. And it's like the fucking asshole I was back when we started this podcast. I'm like, really? That's like 2 years ago.
I go in like fucking 2-week cycles of...
Somehow you remember all that, but you can't remember the conversation we had yesterday about this fucking podcast. That's why you hate the past so much. You can't remember anything that happened.
And that is the Holy Hour podcast.
I'll catch you soon. Thanks so much to Donald for joining me through these horrible 4 years of 92 through 96. We'll see if The Cure survives. We'll be joined hopefully by Chaz soon for an official review of the actual album Wild Mood Swings. Until then, go back. Think of your life between 92 and 96. Wasn't so fucking good, was it? Yeah. We'll catch you soon. So thanks for listening.
Woo!
Signing off. Rock hard. If you would like to hear more riveting conversation about The Cure, like you just heard, be sure to subscribe to iTunes, and you won't miss an episode. And then go on over to Instagram and follow the Holy Hour podcast, where you can find all the info, up-to-date info, feelers for upcoming episodes, and wonderful pictures of The Cure. And if you want to contribute, drop me a line at gavinconner@gmail.com. You can record your voice, talking any random thought, send me an email, anything. We love to hear from you and get your 2 cents. If you just want to chime in on a thread about an episode, we have a Facebook page too. So find the Holy Hour podcast on Facebook. Be sure to check out our friend Chaz's website, 17secondshirts.bigcartel.com, where you can find some super cool, unique, and affordable Cure shirts. And you can also find those at remixedgifts.com, along with countless other cool Cure and non-Cure related products. And also check out Arusha's upcoming documentary, Push, a Cure fan documentary, at curefandocumentary.com. Again, special thanks to Donald for chatting with me, and a special thanks to you guys for listening. Catch you soon.